Welcome back to our next session of TiECon. I'd like to welcome Sandy Carter. And if you haven't been to there's an event agenda, and there's a list of all the speakers' bios, those really long things that list all the titles and all the phenomenal things that they've accomplished. You should probably go and read Sandy's bio. But I'm going to tell you what her title was. So Sandy was the general manager developer for ecosystems and startups, the 2016 Forbes digital influencer. And her topic today is innovation occurs at the intersection of enterprise and startup. And what I want to share with you is I had a little bit of time to talk with Sandy last night. And so as of 4 weeks ago, she had been with IBM for the last 24 years, earning all those accolades, all those incredible things. However, in the last 4 weeks, Sandy has a new company called Silicon Blitz and has moved from being that entrepreneur in IBM working in this technology space with this ecosystem for entrepreneurs, and is actually now taking that leap for herself. And what I think when we talked about earlier about a culture, one of the things that was strong that I got to hear in our conversation last night was quality of life, goals, and things that are incredibly personal to you. And as you listen to some of our speakers and find what the passion was that drove them, it's about certain things that gave them the ability to make those hard decisions. So I'm really excited to hear what Sandy's going to share with us today. Welcome our newly founded company, Silicon Blitz, with one of the top 10 technology women in the world, Sandy Carter.
Great. Thank you guys so much. It's such a pleasure to be here. And you may or may not know that I'm also a native Floridian. I was born in Winter Park, Florida. Not too many of us around. So I want you guys to follow me on Twitter. This is going to be a rapid pace. We're doing the TED-like structure. So Ramesh, I promised I'd get done in 15 minutes, and I have a lot of great stuff I think can help all of us today learn. So follow me on Twitter as we go along. So last week, I had one of the scariest experiences of my life. I was driving in Palo Alto. I thought I was going the speed limit, and all of a sudden, this car comes around to pass me. I look over to see the driver, and there was none. It was one of the new driverless cars from Google. And not only was there not a driver, there wasn't a passenger. It was one of the first allowed on the road with no one in the car. And I started thinking about innovation and how innovation can be done by a large enterprise like Google. But then I thought, I'm really not correct. Because if you think about that connected car, so many startups have played a role in that driverless car. It's incredible. And as you think about innovation, there is a new equation of innovation that's being written today. It's no longer just about the startup, and it's no longer just about the large enterprise. It's truly about a combination. We're going to talk about best practices happening around the world and bringing that new equation of innovation to life. Now, I want to frame a couple of the challenges that I've seen out there. So compliments of PricewaterhouseCoopers, 93% of enterprise executives, big company executives, say innovation is going to be the thing that brings them growth. But 81% of them also said that they don't know how to innovate. They need some help. And I know just from looking at the compliments of the folks here today, there are many entrepreneurs in the room, but there are many entrepreneurs in the room. So we know we need to work on this. But it seems really glamorous to be a startup, right? To become a unicorn, to make all that great money that we heard BK talk about today, to do all those great things. However, even though startups innovate, 9 of 10 startups today fail. And they fail because of lack of funding, top two reasons, lack of funding and not really understanding their business model. How do I monetize what I'm doing? So what if we could rewrite that equation and take the very best of the startup world and the very best of big companies, both of whom I've spent the last 10 years working in, and bring those to the table to truly innovate? And so that's what I want to spend the rest of the time on. How do we do that? How do we make sure that that equation comes to life? Now, it was really interesting when I started my research. I wanted to ask everybody to define innovation. And it was quite interesting. I asked CEOs of great startups in the Valley. I asked chief innovation officers at big corporations, and it was amazing how no one could really define innovation. And so we created this very simple chart with 4 types of innovation. It's already been retweeted over 5,000 times, which shows you that sometimes the simplest thoughts are the best thoughts. So 4 types of innovations that we see out in the marketplace today. One is product innovation, probably the most obvious one. The second big one we're seeing is operational innovation, a lot of which is driven by artificial intelligence, Internet of Things. Third biggest area of innovation that we're seeing is customer experience. In fact, Gartner would tell you this is the #1 area of innovation to focus on, the last sustainable competitive advantage. And then the fourth, but not last, topic of innovation is around business model innovation. So think Airbnb, think Uber, completely changing the business model of those types of establishments. So 4 types of innovation, as I'm talking about today, you're going to see examples of all 4. And again, you're probably sitting there going, wow, that's not really hard. But if you think about it, it's a very simple way to frame what innovation is. So then let's talk a little bit about how to combine innovation now from corporations and from startups. So 3 cores. The first is we got to have a futuristic culture. So not strategy, but culture. Secondly, we need to be client obsessed. And I know BK talked about that this morning, being client obsessed, product market fit. And the third, it's a brand new term brought to you straight from Silicon Valley. How many of you guys have heard of blitzscaling? Reid Hoffman crafted the term. It's been featured in the Harvard Business Review. And we believe that blitzscaling today is primarily in the Valley, but we need to bring it out of the Valley and into other parts of the world as well. So let's talk first about that futuristic culture. It's really interesting to me as I now work with corporations and they bring me in to do innovation workshops. The very first thing they show me is their innovation strategy. And I ask them, what's your culture? Because culture eats strategy for lunch. So you've got to have a culture inside of your organization, whether you're a startup or whether you're a large company, that enables failure, that enables experimentation and quick recovery from that. So there's 2 things that we're seeing that are quite interesting in this space right now that are happening between enterprise and startups. So one is something called Innovation Outpost. I'm going to show you some examples of those. And then secondly, this whole accelerator. You know, you think about 500 startups or Y Combinator, but accelerators are now happening inside of enterprise. And how do you as a startup take advantage of those accelerators? So this is one of my favorite new innovation outposts. If you ever come to Silicon Valley, San Francisco, call me up or email me. Great tour done by Swiss Next. This is hosted by the Swiss government. They've taken over one of the piers. And what they do is they have this environment for Swiss companies and startups to come in and learn from each other and to innovate. In fact, Nestle, which is a great Swiss company, is now doing pop-up dinners with other startups in food to test out new food concepts. It's a bold idea for Nestle to crowdsource their next generation of food products with startups from the Valley as you move forward. Think about that. The other one that I really love is actually in Korea. And they actually have taken the Innovation Outpost to the subway. If you look at this, that's an actual subway where Korean can go and test ideas. In fact, in this particular idea from Tesco, you can go up and take a picture of your food on what looks like an actual grocery store, buy it, pay for it, and have it delivered directly to your house. Because the Koreans believe they are the hardest working people in the world, and they cannot spend an extra second doing mundane things like grocery shopping. And if you only believe that America has this, Nike has recently entered this outpost to test out some ideas about selling their shoes on the side of subways. So imagine what you could do here in Tampa. Now, if you think about acceleration, typically acceleration we've seen being done by folks like Y Combinator, but all of a sudden, there are over 150 companies opening up acceleration labs. This is Sephora. You guys know Sephora? Lots of guys in the room. Makes makeup, right? Beauty products. So they've opened an acceleration lab, and they have a whole set of areas where they are bringing in startups and entrepreneurs to innovate. In fact, accelerating them with money and mentoring in this particular space. And this is one of my very favorites in acceleration. This is done with Intel, and this is the Grush toothbrush. Have any of you seen this? It's a toothbrush with IoT sensors in the brushes. So as you brush your teeth, 10,000 data points of data are collected with each toothbrushing, hopefully at least twice a day. And what they're doing with Intel is they're now packaging up that data in an acceleration model and selling that to insurance companies. So imagine not just a safe driving discount, but a safe brushing discount as well, being accelerated by Intel. So if you're a startup, these are great places for you to look. If you're an enterprise or you are an entrepreneur, great suggestions to make back to your own company. Okay, number 2, client obsessed. Many of you guys are probably thinking, well, startups don't have this problem. This is just big enterprise. It's definitely an enterprise problem. This was a recent study done, and they said that enterprise corporate executives spend only 17% of their time with clients. But as startups get to Series A and Series B, the amount of time they spend with their clients quickly also declines. So it's not just for the large enterprise. So 2 things that are happening here that I think are really important. One is something called startup hotbed time, or you might have heard it as an innovation trip, where executives will fly out to a particular location and then doing Shark Tanks inside and outside of a business. So let me just show you this, and I think this is a great idea. I was talking to Sandy about this for Tampa. So Boston has declared that healthcare and biotech is their thing. Their mayor has really begun this startup hotbed called Startup Hub. And they're inviting experts in and clients in and enterprises in to spend time there and really creating that as their particular hub. Austin is doing the same with consumer packaged goods, but also most recently artificial intelligence. And they've got folks like Capital Factory as well as the mayor of Austin. So these hotbeds, I think, are really fascinating for different areas, like a Tampa, to get together with Ty and declare, we're going to be known for this, and bring in clients and startups and everybody around that particular area. And then the next is just doing Shark Tanks. If you're a large enterprise, then you are doing these contests where you're getting great, hopefully startups coming in. Everybody's doing this today. And this is one of my very favorites. This was done with a startup and a big company called Frito-Lay. They actually used their diversity groups, and what they did is they asked them to come up with ideas like Shark Tank. And this is the Latino group. They came up with Doritos, which is flavored with guacamole. It's their number 22 bestseller in the Frito-Lay company. And so they said, wow, we're onto something, let's scale it. So they scaled it with the Indian diversity group, who came up with tandoori chips, and then the Thai group that came up with sweet chili. And so now they're having this run throughout their corporation with startups to do these amazing new ideas. Okay, final area is blitz scaling, and I could spend a whole couple hours on this, but I wanted to pick out just two pieces of the Blitzscale strategy, which is around building an ecosystem and really leveraging startups and enterprise in a strong go-to-market. So this is one example from my past company, IBM. So Alpha Modus jumped on early with Watson, started developing with Watson, but as well, because of the Global Entrepreneur Startup Program, they were also able to be featured on an IBM ad, and that IBM ad helped them to Blitzscale with over 7,000 leads created just from the advertisement they did together. So the partnering, both win-win situations, really accelerated. And then this is one of my other favorites. I know there's several IoT companies here. This is a company called 360 Degree Fashion. They have now a kit in a box for kids, but what's ended up happening with that product market fit and pivoting is that now designers all over the world are using that kit and LED embedded fabric that's washable to create different fashions. So now it's being used at the Berlin Fashion Show, the Amsterdam Fashion Show, Paris, as well as New York. And this particular company blitzscaled this with Intel. But you're probably thinking these are some great ideas, but what about us? And so I wanted to leave you with something that I think is very personal, because each of us are entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs, and that's how do we get moving and going. So I just found this incredible company in Silicon Valley that we're working with called AI Angel. And what they do is they use artificial intelligence to assess founders on areas that they can either work on or accelerate to grow their businesses. A score of over 60 means that they believe the founding team of a corporation could potentially become a unicorn. And in order to double check it, we went back on over 4,000 companies over the last 5 years, and the AI was really pretty successful in predicting those companies who would be wildly successful. If you are an enterprise, it can also project on projects inside of a major corporation. Do you have the right team surrounding that project? Ramesh will be sending out an email. We're kicking off a female founder survey, and if you take that survey, you'll actually get a free assessment of yourself on your attributes of being a very successful founder. My last slide, this is a friend of mine, Allison Levy. She went to Duke University with me, and unlike me who went to IBM, she decided to climb Mount Everest. So I just had dinner with her the other day, and I thought it was a really interesting story because I didn't know this. This is actually how she climbed. And the way you climb to the top of the mountain is you don't go at the bottom and you go straight up to the top. I didn't know that. What you do is you go up to base camp 1 and you come back down, and you learn and you assimilate into the climate. And you go up to base camp 2 and you experiment and you learn and you come back to the bottom. And you do that at all 5 base camps before you go to the top. And I thought it was a really powerful message for us as entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs who think we're going to go from here straight up to the top. You know what? You're probably going to reach the top and not die, because she said if you went straight up, you would die. You're going to reach the top by going up, back, learning, failing, experimenting, learning, failing, experimenting. So that's the message I wanted to leave you with today. Innovation happens everywhere. Everybody's going to succeed and fail as you move forward. I think you can do some really amazing things. Thank you.